Hello, everyone. Welcome tonight, or good morning or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. We do have quite the diverse group this evening. My name is Angela McCrae. I am a board member of the Cosmobiology Institute, and it is my honor to welcome you all to this evening's event. First, we'd like to start out by reading the mission statement of our organization. The Cosmobiology Institute is dedicated to the empirical verification of relationships between cosmic phenomena with organic life and to the practical application of these observations and discoveries. The Cosmobiology Institute is dedicated to the application of scientific methods to determine the nature of things, regardless of whether those discoveries may be comfortable or uncomfortable for some people to accept. As a nonprofit organization dedicated to furthering scientific understanding and developing applications that improve the lives of people, the Cosmobiology Institute provides a range of services that are free or involve minimal cost, as well as services that can be further developed by private businesses and governmental agencies without intellectual property constraints. Open source software training programs and publications are some of the forms in which the Cosmobiology provides or will provide services. I encourage you all to go to our website, cosmobiologyinstitute.org, to view more information about our organization. So welcome, everybody. I want to take just a minute to do a couple quick housekeeping things, as they say. The first is to remind everyone that we are having our first annual conference in Nashville, Tennessee next April 24th through the 26th. We are super excited about that. I want to go ahead and share my screen because I want to show you all how to find the information on our website. So please visit the website. And just to make a special announcement, we actually have, for anybody that's on tonight or registered, because there's a lot of people who registered who can't be on, they watch the recordings. Through the end of October, we're actually offering $150 off of registration. So Starlene is going to put that coupon code in the chat, and you'll also get an email sent out. So you'll actually have $150 off of registration. We're really excited. When you go to the website, you can take a look at, and this is on cosmobiologyinstitute.org, just go to the conference tab, or you can go to cosmicdiscoveryconference.com. So we have all of the speakers and our discovery sessions, excuse me. So please take a look at what everybody's bringing to the table. This is in my favorite town and also the place that I live in, Nashville, Tennessee. So we welcome everybody here. When you go to the conference website, you just click on this link to the Embassy Suites Hotel that has booking information for the hotel with that takes you to our special rates and so forth. The conference is going to be a lot of fun. Also a lot of information. It's going to be a great place for us all to connect. You'll see that registration includes access to all the sessions, Friday evening through Sunday. Breakfast and lunch is also included on Saturday and Sunday. I believe Friday as well, plus coffee, tea, snacks. So it really, you pay the price that includes a lot of things. So we're really excited about this. Please come if you can. It's in April, which is a great time of year for this city. Okay, so also wanted to mention that the research meetings, you should have gotten an email. I'm going to send another one out next week as a reminder. They are moving to the fourth Friday of every month. So our first on the new schedule will be next Friday. And the time will be 7 p.m. Eastern time. We adjusted the day and the time a little bit to allow a few more people that wanted to be able to join live to be there. I hope that affected you all in a positive way and not anything negative, because we want as much participation as possible. So please join us if you can. So, the first thing I want to do is talk a little bit about this evening, and then I'm going to have Santino and Christopher, who lead our research meetings, to say a few words as well. But tonight we are excited to give 3 people the opportunity to present projects they are working on. And actually, these people come from 3 different countries, if you can believe it. So that's even more exciting to us because we want to be able to reach people as far as we can in lots of different areas. So, as we all know, researching cosmic phenomena requires a lot of time, patience, and a certain type of resilient personality that isn't afraid to ask questions that others have never even thought about. So, we are so excited to have these people share with us. They come from different backgrounds, different locations, and we're very honored to have them share their story. We hope that this inspires you to either start a project of your own or just know that there are people out there who are willing to dig deep and find answers. So, whether you're an astrologer that's looking for something that's concrete to start working in your practice, or you're somebody who really wants to dive into the research, we hope these people will give you a little bit of inspiration. You don't have to have the whole picture when you walk into it. So, Santino and Christopher, if you guys wanted to say a couple words, and then we'll move on with our first presenter.
Yeah, I just want to welcome everybody and thank you for being here. We are a very small group tonight, um, and I think that what we're doing is rather extraordinary in that we're facing astrology head on and saying, does astrology actually work in a way that is different from a personal divination process? Like, does Gemini really talk a lot? Or does Cancer really love to be home? Does Leo tend to have a big ego? Is that actually true? It's very controversial in astrology. Some people get almost hostile just to bring up the topic because they have strong views about it. But the Institute is dedicated to find out whatever that answer might be. So I think this is exciting. Everybody has their own point of view on this. And I'll just say, from my point of view, some of the research that's been done is very compelling. It meets some of the standards set in academia for modern research. If that's true, we're at the beginning of a revolution. And the dozen or so of us that are here are igniting a fire that I think is going to spread. And the excitement and enthusiasm for this mission to find out, is growing very rapidly. I'm very excited about it. So that's all. I just wanted to share that as a kind of
Mhm.
overview of what's going on. And Christopher, do you want to say a few words?
Well, I'm a Gemini, so I'm going to go against type tonight and not talk a lot. I want to give the presenters as much time as possible, so I'll just say,
Thank you.
let's begin.
All right. Well, our first presenter this evening is Jan Stefant. Jan is actually coming to us all the way from Cologne, Germany this evening, which, by the way, it's 2:11 a.m. in the morning. So we are extremely grateful for you to be with us. Jan has been studying astrology since 2012, and he has been learning and practicing vibrational astrology since 2016. He also has a background in physics and electronic intelligence, those easy things to have a background in, along with working in the film and television industry. So, welcome, Jan.
Hi, good day. Thank you for having me.
Mm.
So let me share my screen. I think we're good to go. Yeah, advancing stable harmonic analysis. What is it about? So, yeah, first of all, I wanted to start by saying that harmonic analysis, harmonic chart is amazing. I mean, within the field of investigation, of relationship and possible correlation between cosmic phenomena and biological processes on Earth, they just offer an unmatched level of granularity, and precise contextual framing. I mean, and never see that I haven't seen anything that's come close to that in any other astrological practice. So all of it rests on the stability of angular distances between celestial bodies when we generate harmonic chart. So for example, if I want to explore, let's say, available resources of an individual, then the 12th harmonic, I will choose an arbitrary anchor point on the zodiac from which I will then magnify the angular distance of the celestial body by a factor of 12. So, and simply for any chosen anchor point, we will obtain the same angular distance, the same aspects between celestial bodies. So this is, simply put it, the principle of, or the stability of angular distances. So by convention, the 0-degree Aries is used as the anchor point from which we proceed for the calculation of harmonic charts. Yeah, I wanted also to say that actually it's something that works for any magnification factor. So meaning, let's say if I stay with this example of exploration of the 12th harmonic, I can of course just look at the 12th harmonic chart per se. But if I want to go deeper to investigate, let's say, another layer within the 12th harmonic, I can also, of course, investigate charts that are made with the 5th 12ths or the 7th 12ths or the 11th 12ths, whatsoever. So, yeah, by magnifying the natal chart, we allow for granular and precise framing of cosmic influences within precise life thematics or theme, leveraging configuration of angular aspect and midpoint. And that's it. I mean, we've got this amazing wealth of interpretation, of configuration, and that's based on angular aspect and their respective midpoint. Because only angular aspect and their respective midpoints are by calculation logic, independent from the chosen anchor point, the rest of our toolkit is unstable and thus unreliable. I mean, we are not using zodiac sign, we are not using houses, we are not using ascendant, vertex, MC in a reliable way in harmonic chart. So, yeah. So in the topocentric natal chart, we've got, let's say, a full toolkit where we leverage aspect, we leverage midpoint, we leverage zodiacal location, we can also leverage the reference angle location, and we can leverage different house system. Personally, I'm using the 3-house system from Santino, and I know that other people are using Placidus or whatever you want, actually. And within harmonic chart, regardless of if we use the arbitrary 0 Aries or whatever other arbitrary anchor point, we only can leverage aspect and midpoint, which once again already give us this incredible precision, this incredible wealth of variable, of elements that we can use to investigate cosmic phenomena and yeah, and the influences and what they do, and also to generate really, really precise and extremely rich interpretation. So my hypothesis is that for each and every topocentric natal chart, there is a unique anchor point from which stability of zodiacal position should be enabled within or for harmonic chart. In other words, one unique topocentric natal chart specific anchor point that enable full leverage of our entire analytic toolkit within any harmonic charts. So the question is, what is the systematic rationale to determine this unique chart-specific anchor point for any topocentric natal chart? The Tisserand midpoint, I would like to introduce that or to propose that as the K to stability. Why is that? The Tisserand midpoint, or the TM, just to keep it short, is derived from the anchoring triad of the ascendant, the mid-even, and vertex. It's simply postulated as, let's say, a logical strong candidate due to these 3 points and the derived axis that are forming the fundamental structural frame of each topocentric natal chart. I mean, the axis from the ascendant, the axis from the mid-even, and the axis from the vertex are actually like some kind of address, some kind of, yeah, it's a unique address in relation to the geocentric chart. I would kind of formulate it like that. The calculation rationale. And so the choice of the mid-even as a primary reference for the calculation is a critical methodological decisions. While the ascendant, the mid-even, and the vertex together that form this anchoring triad, only the mid-even provides, let's say, a universal stable reference point for the calculation of the Tisserand midpoint. Yeah. Why is that? The functionality of the ascendants, it becomes compromised at highest northern and southern latitude. Santino already provided informations and video about that in his channel. And I lost my train of thought. Yeah, in high latitude, it's simply travel erratically. So its structural strength is significantly reduced. An entire section of the ecliptic, on the other hand, may fail to intersect with the horizon. Regarding the vertex, vertex loses its efficacy near the equator, where it ceases to be, let's say, a personalized point by defaulting to the equinoxial axis. So meaning, if I remember that correctly, it will be weather position in Aries or weather position in Libra. Is that correct, Santino?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, so the mid-even, however, remain structurally consistent and potent regardless of geographic latitude. So its selection at the logical origin and yeah, for MC-related method of calculation is therefore necessary to guarantee that the resulting proposed Tisserand midpoint is a true, viable, and yeah, stable candidate for what I am trying to reach, regardless of the chart geographical origin. Yeah, the calculation or the rationale. Pretty simple, actually, straightforward. Here we could consider the shortest distance from the MC to the ascendant and to the vertex. So we need to consider the the sense of direction. So let's say for a convention, diurnal direction from the MC will be signed negative, and annual direction from the MC will be signed positive. So as an example, let's see that we've got the ascendant that is at 135 degrees from the MC. And the vertex will be as 55 degrees from the MC. And the Tisserand midpoint is actually just a midpoint between 3 points instead of 2, and you just take the differences between the two, and you've got like the position and the precise location of your anchoring point or your Tisserand midpoint. So in this example, it will be located at 80 degrees away from the MC. So it's just like a simple gymnastic, but it's actually really straightforward and not so complicated. Yeah, maybe I make a small break at this point because I think I was really, really quick. Is there maybe any question and or things that I could maybe enlighten a bit more?
I think your slides really described what you were looking at well. So.
Okay, perfect. The proposed research design. Yeah, just to keep it concise. AA burst data only. I think it's quite evident that the higher the magnification, meaning the higher the harmonic, then the higher the inherent and precision of burst data became larger and larger. For the first case study, I think it will be really wise to only consider geographical origin within the latitude of 15 to 60 degrees north and 15 to 60 degrees south. Why? First, the exclusion of extreme ascendant behaviors, and of course also the exclusion of extreme vertex behavior. Prerequisite, I think, before even starting to make the research, the actual research, there is also a necessity to have clear definitions and interpretative templates for all the variables. I like to consider 27 harmonics. So actually the fundamental harmonics, what I call the first harmonic, the second harmonic, the third harmonic, the fourth harmonic, and then a selection of prime harmonics. So yeah. Clear definition and interpretive template for the 10 primary celestial bodies, so Sun, Moon, up to Pluto. Also for the 3 reference angle, what is a clear interpretative framework or a clear meaning or interpretation for the ascendant, for the MC, for the vertex, and so on for the 12 signs and the 12 houses. So that I can, I try to stick as much as possible to evidence-based practice. And I mean, if everything is already stated, then I only have to look at the result, and the answer is just, does it work? Yes or no? Straightforward. I would like to leverage, of course, extreme case sampling, and maybe, if possible, from trying to get data from previous research. And I mean by that the previous research on meaning and interpretation of the harmonic. Why is that? Because I think it would be, first of all, to make a reproduction of already done research. And at the same time, I think it will be also relevant for me, I mean, to look then at individual which are exhibiting this strong configuration. What I mean by that is, for example, if I will start with, of course, so the natal chart. I will take the natal chart, and I look, okay, the position, for example, of the sun, in which sign is the sun, in which house is the sun in all the three house system, and of course, first checked, does it works? Does it work or not? And then move on to harmonic 2, harmonic 3, harmonic 4th. But I think it will be better to only stick than to individual with, only stick to the harmonic in which we know that there is a strong configurations that are present. Another point that I think will be very important, it's a 3-step validation. So first, I will have to validate the stability of zodiacal location, meaning look for if celestial body in signs, if I can validate that. If it's conclusive, I could then work my way up to the stability of reference angle, meaning using the ascendant, the MC, and the vertex within the harmonic chart. And I realized I forgot something in the rationale. Right now, when we are creating or generating harmonic chart, we are, as I said, we are using an arbitrary point because angular distances are stable. They are independent for the anchor point that we use. And the second thing is that we can also move or magnify this celestial body or celestial object location in the diurnal or in the annual direction. It makes no differences. Angular distance stays the same regardless of the anchor point and regardless of the direction, as long as everything is moved in the same direction. I strongly, or I've got a strong feeling, some things that need to be validated, that we should follow the direction of the dynamic progression of the celestial object and of the calculated location in time. Meaning, from the anchor point, from this Tisserand midpoint, I will then move all celestial body, all celestial object, in the annual direction through the zodiac. And for the ascendant, for the MC, and for the vertex, I will move them, or I will make them move following the diurnal direction, so that I am just simply using the directions that they are naturally doing, from our reference point or point of reference. Yeah, and the last step, if I can validate then that, for example, look at chart where extreme case sampling, where, for example, I've got individual beta with exhibiting in the 5th harmonic, exhibiting a sun, extremely conjunct, or let's say fuse with the ascendant, something like that. And then I can really look, okay, does the behavior validate, can I validate that this individual within is the expression of its playful, creative, life thematic, expressing within the sign. Sorry, I'm getting a bit confused in my in my explanation, but yeah, simply just looking at, okay, the ascendant conjunct with, for example, the sun within a specific sign. Does it work? Does it not work? Do the interpretations stick or not with what we are seeing? And I really would like to find to make this work, because if I can include ascendant, MC, and vertex within the harmonic chart, then we can introduce house system. And that will be then the 3rd step. So just to recap, yeah. So right now in harmonic chart, as I said, just to recap, recapitulation, aspect are stable, midpoint are stable, but I would like to find a rationale to find a systematic way to find for each and every chart what is the anchor point, what is the location from which we will calculate harmonic chart to ensure stable zodiacal location, stable reference angle location, and stable house system, so that we could be able to use the entire toolkit within any harmonic chart. Yeah, potential outcome. If the level 2 evidence-based practice, meaning the case studies, does not validate the Tisserand midpoint as I formulated it, then I will need, of course, a new rationale for the anchoring point and yeah, find another way, continue the research and see if there is something that I missed and if there is some other yeah, proposal or input from the community. If the level 2, if the case 2D does validate the Tisserand midpoint, then I will have 2 additional research that I will need to do. First, I will need to augment the Tisserand midpoint rationale to accommodate for the geographical origin within high latitude. So, for example, when the ascendant is disappear, how do I do that? How do we calculate this Tisserand midpoint? When the vertex is just when the vertex is at stuck at the Libra or at the 0 Aries, how do we do that also? So that's yeah. So yeah, the final aim of advancing stable harmonic analysis will be not only to leverage the entire analytical tools that we are already using within the natal chart, but actually to provide, let's say, a reliable, a stable, and a systematic ground to expand further, to expand this toolkit further. Yeah. So I really like, I mean, what I would like to do, or let me rephrase what I would like to contribute. It's to move into a truly multidimensional or embedded, if you like, astrological and cosmobiological exploration and interpretation. Yeah, so I think that's it.
Thank you, Jan.
I have a question, if I may.
Please.
Yes. Well, first, thank you for your presentation. And I see that your formula, it's incorporating information about the ascendant, the midheaven, and the vertex together. So you do come up with something which incorporates information from all 3 of those important points. But my question is, why did you decide on the particular formula, the particular way of combining those points together that you did versus some other formula involving addition, subtraction, etc.?
Sure. First of all, I looked for, yeah, as I say, first of all, I remembered that the video from Santino, and I remember like this behavior from the ascendant and the vertex. So then for me, the first thing was, okay, whatever I do, the midheaven need to be like kind of the reference point. And from there, I was, yeah, I mean, yeah, from there, I simply got the idea of this Tisserand midpoint because I already tried, let's say, like some kind of, I tried to generate actually those 3 different harmonic chart, like generate an harmonic chart from the ascendant, generate an harmonic chart from the MC, generate an harmonic chart from the vertex. It was a total catastrophe. Nothing worked, but it was worth a trial. Yeah. And Yeah, how can I phrase it? You've got the geocentric chart. So, and you've got then the topocentric chart. Each topocentric chart is actually like, how can I phrase it? It's like an address within the address for me. I try to see that really in three-dimensional. Meaning, when you think about it, when at the same UT time, at the same universal time, at let's say three different locations, three different topocentric locations, one unique time. Of course, we've got a difference because of the observation point. We've got this parallax difference. For all celestial body, it's actually virtually inexistent for us, except for the moon, when it can go to 1.2 or above 1 degree, if I don't mistake. Yeah. And the really only differences or the really specificity come from the ascendant, and the axis from the ascendant come from the MC, and the axis drawn from the MC, and from the vertex, and the axis drawn from the vertex. So the three of them together, they make this kind of three-dimensional address related to the geocentric or to the Earth simply, which is itself embedded within a bigger system, within the solar system.
Let me add,
So yeah, that's, I hope it's enough, but yeah, I mean, that's why this rationale for me.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that sorry, I just want to throw this in, Santino. I'm assuming that you have tried this out on your chart or maybe a few others, and it seems to work well. Good.
Yeah, it seems to work. I tried it on a few charts, and for the fundamentals harmonic, I found it to work. Then when I went into higher harmonic, it didn't work well. But of course, as I say, I mean, only for the sign. A zodiac, I mean, a sign is 30 degrees. So depending on where this anchor point is, and depending on the actual precisions of the birth data, yeah, the inherent uncertainty of the birth data, yeah. But it worked actually well for, I mean, I was able to identify several points that were working for the fundamental harmonics, meaning the first, the second, the third, and the fourth, within my chart, and charts of people I know, and also chart of people that I don't know them, but yeah. But yeah.
Santino, did you have something that you wanted to
yeah, I
add?
wanted to add a point of clarification, and then I have a question. The clarification, because a lot of people probably not familiar with this, is that the midheaven moves at a regular speed no matter where you are. You can be on the equator, you can be near the North Pole. It's moving about 1 degree every 4 minutes. The ascendant and midheaven are speeding up and slowing down all the time. So the midheaven's going around like a nice clock, almost at a perfect steady speed. And the ascendant is speeding up and slowing down. And if you're at a very north latitude, around the Arctic Circle, the ascendant essentially blows up. It becomes chaotic. It just jumps. It can jump 60 degrees in 30 seconds. It goes nuts. And the vertex acts beautifully at those latitudes. It moves 1 degree every 4 minutes. And then you have the reverse problem at the equator. The vertex becomes meaningless at the equator. It's always 0 Aries or 0 Libra for everybody. And the ascendant behaves the most normally and properly at the equator. So the idea is at the equator, the ascendant is stronger. And how can the ascendant work at the Arctic Circle when it essentially doesn't exist? It becomes identical. The ecliptic plane and the equatorial plane become identical. So it doesn't even exist. So it kind of just blows up. So the idea of the formula makes sense because the midheaven is sort of the anchor around which the ascendant vertex speed up and slow down.
Mhm.
And then he's going to stay away from being near too close to the equator or too close to the Arctic Circle where they don't behave too badly. That's just a clarification on like a logic behind what he's doing. But my question is this, Jan, are you saying that the Tisserand midpoint, you set it to 0 Aries? Is that what you're doing? And then,
No, the 0 degree Aries is what is used in the software, let's say it's a conventional point that is used to calculate harmonic chart. And the Tisserand midpoint, I use it, I use the formula. And then, for example, let me go back to the slide. Yeah, here, for example. Here, the Tisserand midpoint will be then 80 degrees away from the midheaven.
and you're just going to use that as a sensitive point.
Yes, exactly. And from this point, I will then magnify the position. I will then create the harmonic chart I will look at the angular distances. I think it's somewhere here. Yeah, I will just look at the angular distances, the distance between this point and the different celestial object. And then I will then apply this multiplication. Apply this factor. For example, if I'm investigating the 12th harmonic, then I will multiply these distances by 12. And this will give me then
from the Tisserand.
Exactly, from the
midpoint.
Tisserand midpoint.
Okay, that's
So,
to me that's equivalent to setting it to 0. So you're going to use the Tisserand midpoint as your anchor instead of tropical 0 Aries. Right?
yes, exactly. So,
Okay, so that's clear. Now I have one more question, which is, how are you going to know in your validation, how do you decide that using the Tisserand midpoint works? Like you're going to take like the extreme whatever, musicians or artists or extreme something, and then how do you decide? Because if it's a subjective evaluation, how do you know that your evaluation would be the same from someone else? Like, I'm not sure how you're going to validate,
yes, of course.
determine that this is working.
Yeah, I think I use this really precise, this clear and well-defined interpretative frameworks where signs are related to outward process description. Let's say the affinity for precise approaches and strategy. Houses, I see them as inward process description. It described to me the privileged input.
Well, let me just interrupt you.
Yeah.
Because we're running out of time. If somebody replicates your study,
Yeah.
suppose you conduct the research and you conclude whatever you conclude. If you give the instructions to me or Angela or anybody who's familiar with astrology and whatever, will they come up with the same conclusions that you come up with? Or is it somewhat, this is a problem
no,
in
it's
Greg's research also. What Greg is going to do is he's going to, at least the last time we talked, he's going to write down what each thing means.
Yes,
Like,
they do exactly the same.
you'll write that down, and then you don't have to think, what do I think Aries means or whatever. You'll just look at that and then decide, does that description fit this particular person? Is that basically?
Yes, basically it's exactly like that. So basically I'm looking, for me it's all about a functional and structural causal behavior, kind of. So I have this template for the meaning of the signs. Let's say Aries is about approaches and strategies that involve cutting away to be authentic and real, etc., etc. I'll have then my 12 houses when I say that when a celestial object is placed within a house, the
Okay.
expression of this, you know what I mean? Exactly. So actually, everything is already written down, and you just need
Right.
to link
So
the template together, and you've got a yes or no. Okay, does it apply? Does it not apply? And
right.
that's it.
What's often done in psychology research with a similar issues is
Mhm.
you have 3 or 5 people who are trained, how to read the interpret, like here's the interpretations, here's the data, etc. Then they know what the procedure is, and then they score the people that you're researching on whether they fit or not, maybe on a 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 scale. And then if you're 3 or 5 raters, people who rate these things, in theory, they should come up with very similar results because you're telling them what to look at, you're giving them the biographical information. In theory, they should all come up with almost the same conclusion. But what you do is you have, say, 3 people do that, and then you confirm that all 3 people are giving the same, very similar evaluations. It's called inter-rater reliability. It's a very fundamental thing in psychological research. So it sounds to me, I'm not sure, but if I understand your research design correctly, you might want to have 3 people, and this is the same thing that Greg is dealing with, have 3 people be trained to look at the interpretations and give their scores or evaluation of whether the people fit. This will ensure that if you're the only person evaluating it, that you're not biasing it by what you
Mhm.
want to see. It will
Sure.
get rid of bias in the analysis because it's a qualitative assessment, and it's a good qualitative assessment, and having an inter-rater reliability will ensure that your evaluations are not biased towards what you want to see. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I have a question then, because actually I didn't. I mean, yeah. So, do you think that scoring will be better than a straightforward yes or no?
It depends. Straightforward, yes or no. It's not really, it's up to you because you're the content expert and
Mhm.
you're the researcher. And so it's your intuition and your sense. If you feel yes, no is better, go with yes, no. If you
I
feel,
mean, yeah, I feel it
I
will.
always
Yeah.
like to give those choices to the researcher because you're the one with the sense of how these things work. So yes, no is nice and simple. It's faster evaluation. Um, it doesn't allow for, there's a trade-off. But so I would say go with what you feel is best.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jan. We look forward to hearing your progress as you move forward with your project. It's very, very interesting and exciting. So next, I would like to introduce Greg Howard. He is an astrology researcher from Dayton, Ohio, but is now retired. Congratulations. Apparently that just happened this week, and is living in Satellite Beach, Florida. Greg worked as a mechanical designer, quality assurance manager, and regulatory auditor in the medical device industry. Greg has been actively involved in astrology research since 2001 and was a board member of the Ohio Valley chapter of NCGR from 2008 to 2012. Greg's research has focused on developing new techniques for natal and predictive astrology, focused on the natal and ruled houses. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you. Let me share my screen here. Let's see here. The entire screen. PowerPoint.
Looks like you're good.
Okay. I'll go through my PowerPoint. I do have a after a few slides, I'm going to stop and ask for some input, but anyone has anything to say, feel free to say it. Well, I'm going along. This is part of my astrology research. My primary research is actually validating methods for natal interpretation. But the issue you come up with when you look at how the houses come into play is what house system should you use? For instance, if you're delineating, someone with the sun in Aries in the fourth house in in one system, and you put your work into that, what happens if with another system, like say Placidus versus whole sign, that puts it in the fifth house? It totally throws everything out of whack, and they're not both going to be right. At the same time, there's no real agreement within astrology on what systems to use. So I would really like to take a look and see if we compare charts in case studies, can we find one system that works most of the time? So the study seeks to determine which house system is most appropriate for use in natal and predictive astrology. There are multiple house systems in use, including whole sign, time-based, and space-based systems. And changing from one house system to another will sometimes change the house location of one or more planets. So the study, it will be an evidence-based approach to compare different house systems and determine if any system can be confirmed to produce accurate results on a consistent basis. So this is more of an overview of what I'm doing as opposed to go deep diving, both for the time I have allotted, but also back at the beginning of the year, I gave a more detailed presentation and got feedback from people, which I have incorporated into my research. I want to avoid my personal bias and bias of any participants, so the test subjects will be selected from a predetermined population and screened per predefined criteria, which I will get into in a few minutes. Researchers will review biographical data for each test subject, identify significant life events that are suitable for study, and then the event data and the timing of those events have to come from credible sources. Then horoscopes will be cast for these events using transits, secondary progressions, and solar arc directions. And the progressions and directions are really useful if you don't have a specific day. Many times when you're going over a biography, they might say something when I was 8 years old, or in the fall of 2019 this happened, but you don't have an actual date on certain events that are really significant to their life. But using progressions or the solar arcs, you can often find a very tight orb on a event that's happening in their chart that matches what was going on in their life. So after these charts are cast, the horoscopes will be evaluated to identify any aspects that meet the test criteria and can be used as test cases. By aspects, I mean like square, trine, sextile, conjunction, of opposition, those things. Okay. Now, once the biographical research is done, a file is prepared for each test case containing a natal chart, the biographical data, and a set of predictive charts for each of the different house systems, because we are going to compare the same event using different house systems and then see which ones seem to work and which ones don't. And the test case, there's a test sample or a test subject is the person, but then throughout that person's life, there may be 5 or 6 significant events that each are worth looking at individually. So each will be its own individual test case that would have its own set of charts, and we would look at that specific event. Now, the case file will be evaluated by researchers to determine which planets and houses correspond to the event being interpreted. And that is the planets and houses in those charts, the aspect charts. The researchers will then decide which house systems put the planets into houses that have the appropriate symbolism. Each case will be summarized in a report documenting the test activities and conclusions drawn. And at the end of the study, results of all the test cases will be compiled into a final report and conclusions drawn. Now for the methods, which Santino mentioned earlier, where I have some guidelines for the participants, explaining the symbolism of the houses and the different houses, what they are. It says, test cases will be evaluated using techniques put forth by Bernadette Brady in her book, Predictive Astrology. I wanted to use an accepted method versus trying to bring the bias of my own specific methods into this. And Brady has a very good approach. She assigns the nature of an event to the house being transited. She assigns the impact of the event to the natal house. So that gives you, each event you have at least 2 houses to work with. There's the house containing the transiting planet, and then there's the natal house, and they each should have a specific role that we're going to be looking for in our research. So the researchers will determine which house best describes the event and which best describes the impact of the event. Then the researchers will determine which house systems match the symbolism of the event. Now here's an example. A husband and wife separated after 12 years of marriage. The husband worked full-time. The wife was a stay-at-home mom, caring for their 3 children. However, the wife often neglected the children and had to appear in court due to allegations of child abuse. The husband filed for divorce, and the children lived with him during the separation. After a year, the husband was granted the divorce and awarded full custody. He was awarded full custody of the children, a major life change for him. Now, the husband's solar arc directed chart for the day of the divorce has solar arc Neptune conjoining Saturn and the solar arc moon sextile Saturn. So those are the planets in play. Regardless of what houses are there, those are the planets in play. So the event being studied was a divorce hearing. What houses would correspond to such an event? So anybody want to chime in?
Seventh house.
Okay. So, I couldn't hear.
The 7th house.
Yes. So the 7th. So I'm thinking that the 7th house is one. There's also the 9th house, if in terms of court cases, it could be there. But predominantly, this, I think most people would agree, this would be probably a 7th house event. So when we go to the charts, we're going to look at the moon or Neptune in the 7th house, or does one of them rule the 7th house? And then Saturn is what the planet that they're aspecting. So as a result of the event, the father had to assume full responsibility for the children. What house corresponds to that? If you have, Saturn, which would be the responsibility over children, what house would you expect to find Saturn in?
5th house?
Yeah, typically the fifth house would be the house of children.
Mhm.
So this is just using very broad, very general descriptions of the houses. So we have two charts we're going to compare. This is the day of the divorce decree in Placidus. And you notice over here, this is a solar arc chart. The solar arc moon is in the seventh house, and it's at 6 degrees, 5 minutes, Aquarius. And it's sextile natal Saturn, which is in the fifth house, and it is 6 degrees, 6 minutes. So, a 1 minute orb on that day at the from the directions. And here you have Neptune, which is 6 degrees, 13 minutes. So it's about 7 minute orb. It actually was exact back when the court case was first filed. But Neptune rules Pisces, which is the cusp of the ninth house. So in this one simple example, you can see the symbolism, a seventh house event impacting both the seventh house event and a ninth house event, the divorce, the court, with the impact, the effect felt in the fifth house, or with Saturn in the fifth house, as far as a father's responsibility for the children. So from Placidus, if that interpretation is correct, Placidus appears to be a good fit in this situation. However, we go to whole sign houses. You now have the moon in the eighth house, sextile the Saturn in the sixth house. And then Neptune is now conjunct Saturn in the sixth house. So you go from seventh and fifth house symbolism. Sorry, my mouth's getting dry. To eighth and sixth house. So then the research team would look at this and make a decision whether or not this seems pretty clear that one, that there's no ambiguity that in this particular case, in this one instance, Placidus is more descriptive of what really happened than what you find in whole sign. Now, this is all done at the research level with the research team. Then, as I have in my protocol for expanding the study, we would then use this as an example. We would have the narrative and not even give them the charts, but just by the narrative and the list of what the houses are, ask what house do you think describes the event? What house do you think was impacted by the event? And they would look at a list and they would see marriage, spouse, open enemies, the typical seventh house description. Then you would see your typical fifth house description, which includes children. And so they could look at that and make a decision for themselves. They would not see the charts. They would just decide which houses fit the narrative. And then we would collect that. You wouldn't even need to be an astrologer to do that. You could have the narrative, have the list of the 12 houses, and pick which ones match what. And then based on that, we can get a large body of evidence as opposed to 3 or 4 researchers saying, we looked at these charts and we believe this method's better. Mm-hmm. So that would give us data that we could actually compile and do some statistics on when we got farther down the road. But now for our sampling, with case studies, you need well-documented biographical data, significant life events, and accurate birth time information. Now, for the purpose of the actual people in this study, I am selecting test subjects from the Time Magazine's Man of the Year and Woman of the Year. So they have a list for the previous 100 years. So that gives me a population of 200 people to start with that I know are going to have plenty of biographical information and significant events in their lives. Now, these have been screened using the astro.com website to confirm that the birth information is known. And to make sure we're only using accurate information, the test samples, the people from this list of 200 are screened so that we're only using people that have an AA Rodden rating, actual documented birth time. So Time Magazine identified 200 potential test subjects. A total of 46 were identified that have a AA Rodden rating. That's not bad. That's about a fourth of them. Now, back when I proposed the proposal to the board initially, there was discussion. The charts for the birth time exactly on the hour or half hour might not be trustworthy, and it would be a good idea to avoid them. But when these 46 test subjects were screened, over half were born on the hour or half hour. Only 20 test subjects were left. Then there's another issue. Birth charts with an ascendant in the first decadent tend to have similar house cusps across the different house systems. These are not suitable for study. For example, one of the case studies that I used in my general research is the chart of Amelia Earhart, the aviator. Her ascendant's at 3 degrees. So whether you use Placidus, Koch, equal house, whole sign, all of them, the planets are all in the same houses. So a chart like that would not be useful for this particular study. However, birth charts with their ascendant in the third decadent tend to have the most discrepancies between one or more house systems. Usually at least half the planets, at least between Placidus and whole sign, half the planets will be different. But we're also going to be looking at a whole variety of house systems, not just the two of them. Often equal house system, I have found my research to date, often aligns with the whole sign system. So anyway, the 20 remaining test subjects were screened to identify horoscopes with ascendant in the third decadent, only left me with 4 people. So I had to make a decision to include subjects born on the hour or half hour, but I am confident these times are accurate enough because these have an AA Rodden rating. So they did have documentation supporting the times. So even if they are off by 1 or 2 minutes, for the nature of what we're doing with this study is not going to make a big difference. Now, after restoring the list to 46 potential subjects, now have 15 subjects with ascendant in the third decadent and 16 with the ascendant in the second. So we have at least 30 people who are going to have one or more charts or planets that have a discrepancy. So I feel like we can move ahead now with what we have. Now, in addition to having 15 to 30 charts to work with, people to work with, a natal chart may have multiple planets that fall into conflicting houses after the screening. Each planet may be used in a separate case study. A natal chart with 3 planets in conflicting houses could potentially generate 3 different studies. So now we're easily with, 30 charts up to 100 studies potential. It's also possible that a single planet may be the focus of several significant life events. You might have Saturn or your sun, have 3 different incidents in lifetime where that was the focus. So you can have additional studies there. So one individual who has a very active, meaningful life in good data support the timing for research, could generate multiple case studies and keep us busy. So like I say in the bottom, the 15 to 30 available test subjects could easily generate 50 to 100 individual test cases, which is all I really intend for this particular study. So finally, I need help with this. My main reason for presenting this to the group tonight, I'm at the point where I've already started some of the research myself, but I can't. I have to have other people who can replicate it and other people who can help with initial research so we can replicate their work. So to really get this moving forward, I need a few people to help me. Researchers needed for each test subject. You would take a person, pick one, review biographical data, identify the significant life events, and document the details and the timing of those events. Then, using your own software, you could prepare test charts with the different house systems and then present the findings to the research group where we would all look at it and discuss it together. And the ones that we felt met the goals of our research, we would then send them on, for participants to make decisions on what houses they thought applied to the narrative. But the main focus right now, before I can do any of that down the road, is I need a few people to help me where we can do the research, get the narratives written down, have the test charts to where we know that we have some case studies to use. So as researchers, you would do part of the biographical research on your own subject. Then you would be part of the team and help other people develop conclusions on what they found. So we would all be doing the same things, just on different people, and then bringing our work together to meet as a team and share it. And just to give you an idea of what I came up with, this is the first string. These are people with the AA rotting rating and ascendant in the third house. And there are people from all over the world. And I'm currently working myself on Maya Angelou, but there are people like Queen Elizabeth is in there. Frida Kahlo, the artist from Mexico, is in there. There's some Europeans in there. A lot of interesting people that someone may be interested in doing some research into the biography and seeing how it played out in their horoscopes. And then I have a second string with more people, but these are basically the people that this study is going to focus on. But I need someone who can help me at this point.
Greg, I also, just so everybody knows, I put your email address in the chat too.
Okay, thank you.
When the screen goes away, you'll have that information.
So, okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And now, since Halloween's coming up, I don't know if anyone outside the U.S. will know what this is, but my final slide. Any questions?
Yes, I have a few.
Okay.
First, on the list of people there, I was very pleased that Emmy Noether was included in that list, because I may be one of the only people here who knows who that is. Let's see. It wasn't on this slide, it's on another one. I think you had. Yeah,
Here we
there.
are, right here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyone else know who she was?
Yes.
Oh, good. That's
Yes.
right.
She's
A
a
good
mathematician. A mathematician. Yes.
Just one of the leading mathematicians of the 20th century. She is an algebraist and a group theorist. And since my PhD is in group theory,
Yeah.
I know who she is.
Okay.
But the other thing, more importantly, I want to ask, how many house systems are you going to be considering?
Probably 7 or 8.
Yeah, I would use as many house systems as are available to you in software. I think in Sirius there may be about 20 different house systems,
Yes. Yeah.
but
I mean, for the number of people we have here, once we have a case study that we've agreed on,
yeah,
I mean, for the screening purposes, we'll just use a handful of house systems just to make sure that we have the conflict we're looking for.
yeah,
Then once we get the results back from other people, look at our narratives and vote on the houses and that, then we can make a spreadsheet with all the house systems and give them all points wherever they're correct. That was my
yeah,
idea, is actually use a scoring system. So after all the different case studies are added up, we'll see which houses have the highest scores.
yeah. That was gonna be my other thought. That would be good to have some sort of a scoring system, which could possibly be very simple, like in the example you gave involving uh, the Saturn and the moon. Well, moon in seventh house could be 1 point, Saturn in fifth house could be another point. So for each house system, you could get from 0, 1, or 2 points out of that. And then if you tested several things, which I think you've indicated you're going to do, well, for each house system, you could just add up the number of scores you got for each situation you tested, and then that could give you a good idea of which house system is working consistently well.
Yes.
Yeah,
I also,
Because I want to try and keep it as simple as possible. I need people with the knowledge of astrology to help with the research and put these initial test cases together.
yeah,
But if we do it right, you don't have to know astrology to be able to read a narrative and pick from a list of 12 houses, but which houses seem to describe this situation.
yeah,
And then that's
also
something that's replicable.
yeah. And
a
like I
good
said, if you eventually incorporate all the different house systems, then there have been studies I've seen in the past that look at maybe 4 or 5 house systems. I think, well, maybe the really best house system wasn't included in that study.
Correct.
Also, thank you, Greg, for presenting this. A good point that I think that you made is that you're using Bernadette Brady's theory. So you don't necessarily have to come up with your own theory to do research. I think, there have been lots of astrologers who have theories out there that really do need some deep dive. So I just wanted to kind of mention that point for anybody thinking of doing a project, working on a project. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and move on so we can get to Blake's presentation. And then at the end, if there's any general questions, we can definitely take that on as well. And Blake Gorley is presenting next, and he's our final presenter this evening. He comes from Vancouver Island, Canada. So like I said, we're represented in 3 countries today. And he has been an astrologer for more than 20 years, specializing in Uranian astrology most recently. So Blake, welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Share.
There you go. It's starting up.
How do I even start this? Okay, so started off about, well, more than 3 years ago. I started using this centaur called Narcissus, and I used it on a bunch of celebrities. Just Narcissus by itself with personal points like the ascendant or midheaven, Aries point, the sun or moon, and the personal point midpoints. And I found that the narcissistic celebrities tended to have a few of these midpoints that involved these things. Then about 3 years ago, I joined this astrology group I found on a YouTube channel. Got into their Discord server, and my friend told me that I was talking to a narcissist. So I was like, oh, really? So I put narcissist into her chart, and I thought, oh, well, that fits. That's like those other ones. And then I discovered that the very recent, we call them lunar eclipse, was on my Cupido Narcissus midpoint, which I began to formulate the idea that this had something to do with communal narcissism, which is kind of like a cult, I guess. So I started using this cult midpoint in a bunch of charts. Started with about just five of them, eh? And I thought, hey, there's something going on here. So I started trying to formulate the idea that I could make an astro signature out of it. And turned out that I probably could, but Sirius didn't have the ability to let me use Narcissus like I wanted. So I just kind of put it back down. Then David started doing cult leader research again, or well, he started doing some cult leader stuff when someone asked him about it. So I started doing this research a little bit more again, and I picked up a bunch more cult leaders with, these AA type datas and stuff. There is, it's just in my way here. Can't get to my tabs. This one, yeah.
Your tabs look like mine, Blake. So
there's just a
I
little
feel your pain.
screen sharing device sitting on top of them there.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of cult leaders inside Astro Databank here. It's like, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 of them or something. So I haven't been getting my cult leaders from here. I've been getting them from YouTube channels and stuff. And then I saw a couple of David's videos, Bonnie Nettles and Joseph, so I picked them up too. This is how we'd seen their data. They're not fresh to me anymore. We need fresh cult leaders that I haven't looked at to do the next stage of the research on, right? So some of you might not be familiar with a couple of the points I'm going to use because they're from Uranian astrology here. Where's my thing? Put it in here. Yeah. So Cupido deals with groups and families and things like that. And Kronos symbolizes authority and leadership. And I guess we're assuming that Narcissus has something to do with narcissism. So let's take a look at some of these cult leaders and see what I found, I guess. Let's look at Jim Jones. There's exactly how they're not exactly in order here, are they? Let's just go through them in the order that we find them in here. So Jim Jones has, you can see what this is. This is longitude equivalent declinations, if you're familiar with that. And what does ANT stand for again? Antisha? So I just did it like that so that we can see them. So Cupido and Narcissus are contraparallel here by just under 2 degrees of longitude equivalency. There are 3 of these cult leaders that have the same thing, which is a bit more than we would expect. If we used 2 degrees, I think we would have less than a 5% chance of having this just sort of at random. So there's the longitude equivalent column for the things that you can actually get in here. You'd have to, if you were using Narcissus, you would have to get it some other way, which I did. Oh. Someone's shooting guns off. This is Jim Jones's first vibration chart here. This is Cupido Narcissus midpoint here. I put 13 divisions here, and there's Kronos, or co-leader formula is in the 13th harmonic here. We'll see that again. That happens a few times, much more than we would expect. Here is his azimuth, said analog azimuth. This is like northeast, southwest. So I pointed the 0 off this way here. So that's east. Up is north, south is down. And here we have Cupido Narcissus equals Cronus again in his horizontal chart. He's born on the hour, but I mean, that seems to be fine from what I can tell, because this is only a 5-minute orb. And it's also on his midheaven too. That's a little bit unlikely. In his first vibration here, we have some complex formula here. I'm going to use the Cupido Narcissus as the A. You know how midpoints do A/B? So this is Cupido Narcissus as like the A. And then Cronus is like the B here. The double slash is the midpoint of the two things there. And that goes to his sun. It's not the best orb. We are in his first vibration still. We have the Aries plus Narcissus minus Cupido equals his midheaven Cronus midpoint. That's not the best orb. Here's his 13th vibration chart. So we can see how nice that looks. It's a good orb. Is that 19 minutes? And the Cupido Narcissus plus Narcissus minus Aries goes to his sun over here. So that's probably slightly helpful. I'm not too sure how to incorporate that into an astro signature though. It would need to be kind of simple to do an astro signature. If this is kind of like the same, almost the same chart, right? So this is the Cupido plus Narcissus minus Cronus down here. And then it goes to the Aries sun midpoint quite nicely. About, what is it, 4-minute orb here. What are we doing this time? Here, looks like the first vibration. We've got the Cupido Narcissus midheaven midpoint equals Kronos. That's a 1-minute orb there when we get to it. But it's off on some weird harmonic here. This is a 90-degree chart right now. So what are we actually pointing at for here? Over here. So this would be like off in the like 16th harmonic or something. Here's his 91st harmonic chart with the Narcissus, Cupido, Cronus are clustered up. You can see the sun Aries is still there. This is the Jim Jones diet. Yeah, like to eat okay, but his followers did They were eating like rice water soup. It's not very nice. This guy has a pretty tight Narcissus Ceres conjunction in his chart. So I'm thinking that has some correlation with how he ate and how his followers ate. What else? What would be a good one to go to next? Marshall Applewhite. So the blue lines on here are the Cupido Narcissus. This D for the solar arc. This is a 90-degree chart. It's the natal, the transit. So you can see the transit Cupido Narcissus midpoint is at the half solar arc. So that's something that's pretty good for an event. His Cupido Narcissus Kronos complex midpoint here is also doing this. So this green line stuff is that what this kind of represents is that the transit is on top of the negative solar arc. That makes any sense? I mean, it takes a bit of thinking to see that. Some plane going overhead. This is this little event here where he got his first cultist. Just took them on a road trip and bled her credit card until she decided she didn't like that. He's another one who has this Cupido Narcissus contraparallel. They're all within 2 degrees if they're there. He's also got the Cupido Narcissus equals Kronos in the 13th harmonic chart. It's not the best orb, but I chose to use a 2-degree orb from the first few that I saw. So basically this guy has defined what the fact that I'm using a 2-degree orb. 43rd harmonic chart, what is in here that I thought was interesting? I'm not too sure. His 91st harmonic chart, he's got the Narcissus Cupido Kronos cluster. Who else? Got Jim Jones, Marshall Applewhite. Oh, Osho is a good one. You know that. Osho. You guys know who this is? David has done, I think, a video on this guy. So this is my Python code for running up, looking for these things really fast. So he's got a Cupido Narcissus Kronos cluster in his 13th vibe, and he's got a really tight 0.03 degree orb midpoint. We call this the cult leader planetary picture here. In his 43 vibe. Here is his horizontal chart. What are we doing here? We've got the cult leader sensitive point. A plus B minus C goes to his midheaven. Yay for horizontal charts, right? I don't know if anyone else has even ever used them. I made a little code to do Monte Carlo simulation to figure out what the odds that things would cluster are. It's not too likely that you can get 4 specific objects in, to make a circuit. What is that, 0.03? So you'd have to go through like 3,000 harmonics before you'd find one on average. Here's his Cupido Narcissus Kronos cluster. It's equal to his midheaven. So that's 4 objects. And it's in his 13th vibration chart. So, you know, odds of that happening weren't very good. His 43rd vibration. It's pointing as, you know, as close as it possibly could, really. Charlie Manson is another interesting one. Let's see. If I drew it on here, yeah, I did. His Cupido Narcissus midpoint is at 1215 in Libra. His Kronos is at 1215 of Taurus, so it's like a perfect quincunx. There's some other notable thoughts I had here. His Narcissus is in a quindecile aspect with his ascendant. So, you know, you can't be a good cult leader without being a narcissist. And if you were ever to run a test of, you know, what does something mean, you're going to stick it on conjuncting the sun, right? It's one of those that's going to show up here. Odds of 3 objects clustering. Seems a little weird. Specific objects, yeah. So if you want to get a Cupido Narcissus Kronos cluster in a vibration, you've only got a 1 in 200 chance. But we find them fairly often. I mean, I did look to some ridiculous harmonics, though. So this is one of the other cult leaders I found, because he's one of his cultists threw some flammable substance on Charlie Manson when he was in prison. So this Hare Krishna stuff appears to be another cult. So that's another cult leader added to the list. Where's what I want here. So this date, August 25, is wrong from Astro Databank. The New York Times published it September 26. And the wiki said it happened on September 25th, not August 25th. So that seems to confirm to me when it actually happened. How are we on time? Want to keep going?
I think Blake, I think
Bonnie?
you're pretty good. I think we've got the idea of what you're doing. I want to just make a comment now, and you can continue if you want, but this is an excellent example of how to build a model. You can take whatever ideas inspire you that you think, you know, make sense. Could be Vedic, could be evolutionary, could be whatever. Blake is taking all these ideas that he works with and going through all these charts with the eventual goal, I think, that he creates an astro signature. You know, eventually this will lead to a list of things that lead to narcissism and narcissistic behavior, such as being a cult leader. I'm a big believer that for some research, you can spend 10 to 100 times more time building the model than testing the model. So in other words, he's spending a huge amount of time and energy building a model, seeing if these ideas that he thinks work really work, and applying them to all of this data and looking at a lot of possibilities. The reason he's using 13, 43, 91, because my research not using the Narcissus, not using the Uranian planets, showed that those vibrations are important for this. So he's taking some previous research, combining it with ideas that he uses to very slowly, very meticulously explore all these ideas, and eventually he'll come up, if he can stay with this long enough, with a list of factors that can then, you can create a shuffled control group and see if they work. But so to summarize, sometimes some researchers prefer to do a lot of exploratory research before testing anything. And that's what I think Blake is doing. And it just gives you a realistic example of how time consuming it is to sort all these things out. And I think what he's doing is what a lot of astrologers do. They think, oh, this solar arc thing or this planetary configuration does it, but they don't take the time. I'm not blaming them, who has the time to do this, and the priority to work through it with every case you can get, and then gradually build the astro signature. So yeah, this is a good example of thoroughly building an astro signature based on what you as an astrologer thinks is likely to work. I think it's wonderful. It's
Mhm.
a huge endeavor, and it can go on and on and on and on. But imagine if after years of doing this, Blake comes up with a formula that works. Wow. I mean, that would be a historical breakthrough.
Blake, I know Santino's research has shown correlation between not just cult leaders or what he was calling gangsters and gurus, but like
Exhibition
the,
gurus, yeah.
the guru side of it. Like, have you seen any correlation between, you're
A
looking at cult leaders or who
lot of
somebody
them
would
use
consider the good
guru
side?
angle. You're just looking at a lot of cult leader videos and just general research. You'll see a lot of them use the guru angle.
Oh,
Self-help.
right.
Self-help is the big lure. Like no one tells you this is a cult before you enter them.
Right.
And if you were to, say, hey, I think this is a cult, they'd be like, no, this is not a cult. But there's no legal definition of a cult, and it's really hard to define, apparently. Like the French government can't figure out how to define it. So I guess I'm probably not going to figure it out. But it's one of those things you know it when you see it.
Right.
Well, some people do. Some people can sit in a cult for years and not realize it for some reason.
So Angela, I think Blake is focusing on this negative manifestation of
Because of the
narcissism,
narcissism
cult
angle.
leaders,
Yeah.
which is good. The more homogeneous your research, the better. So he's focusing on a specific thing. But it would be interesting to see,
Well,
spiritual leaders who do not seem to be abusing their followers and do seem to be inspiring them, see how that
there,
differs or might be the same.
yeah. So there's enough harmonics that eventually you're going to have this cult leader formula in the harmonic, but it's not going to be one of these entitled vibrations, right?
Hmm.
Right.
Not going to be a gangster type. Like I can guarantee you that I can find a vibration for you that has this clustered up in it. If I look through 5,000 vibrations.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think what I enjoyed about this evening is that all three of you really came at different perspectives from different perspectives in your research, and the topics you were choosing are very different. I think that there are so many things, so many questions that can be researched, which to me is why this cosmobiology, astrology is so fascinating. Does anybody in the audience have any questions? If you do, you can raise your hand or just unmute yourself is fine. Or put it in the chat.
Bonnie Nettles. How do I know if anything's happening?
I'll let you know. I don't see anybody
Okay.
with questions right now.
I have
Okay,
some thoughts on Greg's research. Is this a good
Yes.
time?
sure.
So going back to Greg's research, I looked at Amelia Earhart, for example, with 9 house systems, and there are differences in the house placements for some of those house systems. So I'm not sure that you have to restrict yourself to that first decadent thing, which brought you down to 4 people, because I think you're going to find differences in house systems with almost everybody. So, I think if you do enough, like I brought up a little table of 9 house systems, and every planet except one does vary in its house placement. You might be able to use all 20 for your first level of research.
Okay, because yeah, when I was working with her, I was using Placidus, Coke, Whole Sign, and Equal House, and those 4 all seemed to line up. A couple of the rulerships changed, but the planets all fell in the same. I didn't look
Well,
at.
I'll give you a quick result, a quick summary of using 9 house systems: Campanus, Equal, Coke, Meridian, Marinus, Placidus, Porphyry, Regiomontanus, and Topocentric. For the sun, only Equal houses puts the sun in the 3rd house. The rest put it in the 4th. For the moon, Campanus puts the moon in the 1st house. The others put it in the 2nd house. For Mercury, most of them put Mercury in the 4th house, but Campanus, Regiomontanus put it in the 5th house. Venus is the only planet that's the same for all 9 house systems. And like Christopher mentioned, there's like 20 house systems, but of these 9, it's the only planet which is the same. But just to give you 2 more, to give you an idea, for Mars, it's mostly in the 5th house, but it's in the 6th house with Campanus and with Jupiter. Campanus, again, is the only one that places it in a different house. So, but with Saturn, you get Meridian and Marinus putting it in a different house from the others. So there's at least one house system that out of those 9 that's different for every planet except for Venus. And if we add more house systems, there's going to be, there's going to be at least one. And so I like Christopher's idea that if in Greg's design, if people select which makes more sense, sun in the 3rd or 4th house, and then you can just check off, which house systems gave the more accurate result, and then you
Yes.
count up which house, how many correct did each house system get, and yeah. So I just wanted to mention, there are differences, even for her.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anybody else? Well, I think this was a great meeting. Thank you all for your time. Thank you to the presenters. It's really great to know that you guys are working on projects and stuff out there. As I said in the chat, hopefully we hope that you all will have something to present, or at least interest in something that you can share with us in the future. Remember that the research meetings are changing to the 4th Friday of each month at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Starting next Friday is our first research meeting on this. If you are not on the research meeting email list and would like information, just send me an email at info@cosmobiologyinstitute.org. I put that in the chat and I'll get you added to the research meeting list. But it was great seeing some new faces and seeing some people who we've come to really appreciate in our group. But thank you all. Have a great evening, wonderful weekend. I appreciate you being here. And we're going to share this in YouTube also. So you'll have the link. We'll send the link out to everybody this weekend. Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.